The Aware Project's aim is to balance the public conversation about psychedelics, spread accurate information, and give a new face to psychedelia. We feel that this change will occur through connection and relationship, one individual at a time. We are calling on everyone whose lives have been improved through the mindful use of psychedelics to educate themselves and become ambassadors for the psychedelic experience. Show those around you that people who use psychedelics mindfully cross all social, racial, economic, and political boundaries.
With that, I want to welcome Javier. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me? Yes? Welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. Help me celebrate the publishing of my new book on San Pedro and a second edition of my first book, which is on ayahuasca. And they just came on the shelves today. I want to thank Ashley and Malaya and the people at OLAG for making this happen. Just like Ashley, following a deeply transformative healing experience with ayahuasca, I started entertaining the idea of supporting others in reaping the benefits of this process, to the point that I moved to Peru 12 years ago to study plant medicine and creating my own healing center in the village of Pisac near Cusco, and eventually writing a book and then writing another book. And God knows what else is in the works. I'm here to celebrate the publishing of these books, but it's really an excuse. My wish coming to the States at this time is to support greater awareness in the plant medicine process. Everything I say is always just my opinion. If you find it useful, great. If not, just dismiss it. First of all, I think it's important for us to remind ourselves and remind the people around us that what we call medicine is a medicine. A medicine, as far as I'm concerned, is anything that we may ingest, that we may do, that helps us remember who we are. And for me, a drug, whether it's something we ingest or something that we do, is simply a way to forget who we are, is a way to escape from ourselves. Escaping from ourselves is, we're all experts at it. We're so good at it that at some point we realize that it's not taking us anywhere, no matter how fast we run. And so we start turning around and start this journey home towards ourselves. And anything that can support that is indeed good medicine. It's also important to remember, we live in a very desacralized, materialistic world, and whether we acknowledge it or not, we are part of that world, and it's easy for us to forget that these are sacred medicines, that these are ancestral medicines. And therefore, they ask of us respect, humility, and patience. As Westerners, we have a deep hunger for the sacred, to remember that sacredness within ourselves and around us. And at the same time, we often can't help but bring our own materialistic ways, our own consumeristic ways, wherever we go, whatever we touch. And it's important to remind ourselves that it is a privilege for all of us to be engaging with these ancestral medicines. In the tradition that I have been and continue to be trained in, Amazonian plant medicine, everything is perceived as alive. Everything is perceived to have a unique energy and flavor. So when we drink these medicines, this is not some molecular compounds that strangely affects our brain physiology. Because we're not just a sum of physiological, chemical things. We are multidimensional. And so is everything around us. When we ingest these medicines, we are actually connecting our consciousness, which expresses itself on many levels, including the physical, is dancing with another consciousness. There's a meeting and there's an interaction that goes both ways. So we are connecting with plant energies, and plants teach us. They offer us their viewpoint on reality, so that we can gain a greater perspective, so that we can open our minds out of our rigid schemes and ways of thinking. Plants carry not only their own unique energy, but just like us, they also carry the energy of the place where they come from, in the same way that all of us carry the energy of our ancestors, of the places that we were born in, grew up in. So in the case of ayahuasca, for instance, we're not just drinking some molecular compounds that include DMT and this and that. We're connecting with the energy of a plant. We're also connecting with a whole world. In this case, the world of the Amazon jungle, both physical and non-physical. And that interaction also puts us in touch with our own roots. As Westerners, oftentimes we suffer from being uprooted culturally and everything else. Our connection with the land that is our soil is oftentimes mediocre at best. So in this case, these medicines help us reconnect with our own roots so that we can grow and thrive. And then when we drink these medicines within a certain context, within a certain tradition, then we're also drinking from the wisdom that has been gathered through centuries, millennia, by people who have drank this medicine before us. That's perhaps why that cup feels so thick and hard to swallow. I'll repeat again, it is a privilege. It is a privilege for all of us to be drinking from that cup each and every time. So, Ashley mentioned that we live in borderline prohibitionistic times. Due to legal matters, the American government can no longer afford to prosecute the use of ayahuasca. Having lost 2 cases all the way to the Supreme Court, they cannot afford to lose another case, which means the use of ayahuasca will be completely legal in this country. However, as more and more people feel called to engage with this medicine, this becomes a matter of public safety and public health, as far as I'm concerned. Every weekend, 911 is being called because somebody's freaking out or running through the woods naked in the snow. It's important that we cultivate a culture of safety and awareness. The more these medicines become popular. Otherwise, at some point, the authorities will find different ways to prevent us from drinking from that cup. Once again, it's a privilege. It's not a right. We have to let go of feelings of entitlement and take responsibility for the fact that these are powerful medicines, and that safety is a very important matter. In my retreats, I ask people when they register, there's a questionnaire, there's a series of dietary and behavioral preparations. And then when people arrive, I ask, have you all adhered to these restrictions? And I let them know that the safety of the group depends on everybody who's part of that group. We actually co-create safety. We co-create awareness. We have spent enough time blaming the guide, the host, the toilet paper for what goes wrong in a ceremony. My invitation to all of you is to let go of that blaming and to take your part, your responsibility in co-creating safety. Physical safety, emotional safety, mental safety. The great thing is that this is not so difficult to do, and that we can do it. We can all co-create that safety in very small ways. It's not that difficult. And also, we can, by example, teach others. We can share our experiences. We can share also what we feel it's important in terms of information, so that new people who approach this process are aware of the importance of a certain discipline. For me, the more powerful the process, the more powerful the medicine, the more delicate it is. We may break a bone in the arm, okay? If we go to a brain surgeon, we take more care about it. We look around, we ask a few more questions. And yes, this process is very powerful. The more I engage with it, the more respectful I become, and the more humble, because I'm aware of its power. So, my invitation to all of you is, whenever you hear people sharing information that is superficial at best, to offer your wisdom, to share your wisdom, to not be afraid to share your wisdom each and every time, to offer your advice to other people. For me, plant medicine is a yoga. It's a discipline. Plant teachers are always happy to support us in our awakening process. Always. They're incredibly generous. But as far as I'm concerned, they also demand that as we enter, as we knock at their door, we are their guests. And we all have rules in our own homes, right? No shoes, flash. So it's important when we knock at the door of these plant teachers that we remember that we are guests. So it's important for us to honor and follow whatever etiquette, so that our host does not kick us in the butt and out of the front yard, bruised. And the more powerful the medicine, the stricter the discipline. Each and every time. There are many things in our lives that we are blessed with, but oftentimes can't help but take for granted or feel entitled to. This attitude does not work. This attitude actually takes the power of these medicines away until they stop talking to us. And it would be a terrible loss. So, also, we receive a lot of insights from this process. Now, there's a beautiful teaching from the Andes. Some of you may be aware of what is known as the Inca trilogy or trinity or something. That is the snake, the puma, and the condor. These are cosmic energies and very powerful symbols. The snake, which is one of the most important ways in which ayahuasca manifests to us. The snake is a symbol of wisdom and healing. And it's about the energy that is from the crust of the earth down. The level up is the level of the puma, of the jaguar, and it's about this level of reality. For instance, the city of Cusco was built in the shape of a puma because it was to be the center of power of the Inca Empire. And the key words for this level of reality is power, strength, and courage. The upper level, the level of the condor and the eagle, is about the heavenly realms. And the key words for it are divine love and light. It is taught in the Andes that wisdom in and of itself isn't worth much at all unless we have the power, the strength, and the courage to embody, to walk that wisdom. And it is also said that power, strength, and courage, if it's not enlightened by divine light and love, can become outright dangerous. So the goal is to actually merge these three levels. To walk in our wisdom with love and with the brightest light that we can shine. Now, oftentimes we receive important insights during this process with plant medicine. And somehow we think that those lessons are for tomorrow, when in reality those lessons are to be implemented right away, even in the ceremony itself. Say lessons about patience, lessons about keeping our hearts open and letting go of judgment. We sometimes forget that the ceremony space is simply practice for life. I'm going to apply that tomorrow. Mañana. Ceremony space is an amazing practice space. It's an amazing practice space because we are with like-minded people who are so generously willing to host all of our projections and judgments. We are surrounded by great teachers each and every time. And our greatest teachers are the most annoying people in the world. Once again, these are medicines. And everybody present is a teacher. Ashley was mentioning a little while back about her first ayahuasca experience. She says, of course, I came in with loads of expectations. I held myself. This is not, a ceremony is not about having a good time. When we go to the dentist, do we expect to have a good time? No. We go to the dentist because we hurt and nothing else works. So we go, we ask around, we find the best dentist that we can afford. And when we go to the dentist, we lay on that chair and we don't get up every 2 minutes and say, no, you're doing it wrong. This hurt, make it stop. No. We are aware that we are putting our trust into something bigger or more knowledgeable than we are. And we let the doctor do its work. No matter how much it hurts. And this is the same. And if we keep that humility, then we don't have to drink this shit that much. We learn our lessons. We move on. We go back to our lives, which are transformed. So, as these medicines become more and more popular, there is also an issue of sustainability. These plants give their lives for us. These are plants. Ayahuasca vines need to grow at least 5 years before they can be harvested. 5 years. And they're willing. But ayahuasca is actually getting scarcer. Natives need to go farther and farther into the jungle to look for wild ayahuasca. Therefore, touching more and more of virgin forest. So my invitation to all of you is make the most of each drop of that medicine. And making the most of it is by preparing adequately, showing up with your best attitude, and afterwards actually integrate that experience. Taking the time to actually reconsider your priorities, your assumptions, and bring these new viewpoints, this new awareness into your life. One of the main reasons why I wrote this new book on San Pedro was to write at greater length about integration. Integration is the most important aspect of this process. And I'm very grateful that people like Ashley are creating groups for integration. If we don't integrate, our experience is meaningless. It has absolutely no value, which leads many people who don't actually do the integration, they find themselves having to drink every weekend just to feel that elation, that expansion. So these medicines turn into crutches, turn into drugs. And they were never meant to be used that way. Integration, a very important aspect of integration, is for me the main message of both ayahuasca and San Pedro for us at this point in history is primarily let go. Let go of whatever may have been important, perhaps necessary for our well-being, for our survival in the past, but no longer really is in the present moment. It's a beautiful invitation. And sometimes in the throes of the medicine, we struggle with that letting go. As much as we love to let go. Hell. The letting go that we experience under the effects of these medicines, as challenging as it may be at times, is nothing compared to the letting go that we are often called to do after we drink these medicines. When we go back home and we find ourselves in the awareness that a job, a city, a relationship, a friendship, a spouse no longer work for us, and that it's time to let them go. And that letting go in 3D reality sucks. That letting go in 3D reality calls for a lot of courage, a lot of strength, and oftentimes we're easy to fall back into denial, into procrastination. It's important to remind ourselves that no medicine, however sacred, however powerful, are going to live our lives for us. If anything, these medicines support us in taking responsibility for our lives. They support us in living in integrity with ourselves, in letting go of our fears and opening our hearts and shining our brightest light in every moment of our lives. They will not live our lives for us. As you know, we're always secretly looking for magic pills. We're always looking still for someone to tell us how to live our lives, tell us what to do, the right thing to do. But as the Hopi elders had written years ago, it is time for us to become our own leaders, to become our own coaches, our own mothers and fathers, our own best friends. It's a beautiful invitation to grow up and to truly be the best that we can be, to let go of our own attachments, to staying like little children. And to play like responsible adults. If we start growing up, we're going to be providing for our own children very important models. We know how the lack of positive father or mother figures has impacted us individually and as a collective. And we are here to heal all of that. We're here to heal thousands of years of wounding, of disempowerment, of abuses, not just for ourselves, but for our ancestors and for our future generations. If we find ourselves in this predicament, is because I believe that we can do it. That we can actually heal all of that with humility and patience, one step at a time. and we can actually help shift our species predicament. And not just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of future generations. Working with my interest in plant medicine and my offer of service to this medicine started first with ayahuasca. And then soon afterwards I discovered San Pedro. San Pedro is an amazing medicine. An amazing medicine that carries within itself also the richness of the people of the Andes and the coastline of South America, the Pacific coastline. San Pedro was so called by the first Spanish who ingested it because they were Catholics. And some of them were lucky, and when they drank it, they went to heaven. And who stands at the gate of the Christian heaven is Saint Peter. And that's why they called it San Pedro. A more ancestral word for this plant also had the similar meaning of door. San Pedro is a door opener. It helps us open the doors of our hearts, of our emotions, of our spirit. It helps us open the door to the wisdom of the earth, of the heavens. But for me, most importantly, it opens the door of our own healing abilities. Meaning that through the ingestion of this medicine, we learn how to heal ourselves. This medicine teaches us how to heal ourselves to the point that oftentimes it's not really that necessary to drink that shit. It teaches us that indeed love, compassion, forgiveness are the greatest of medicines. And it helps us open up again this potential that is in everybody's heart, in and out of ceremony. And this is wonderful news because the medicine reflects back to us our own medicine, the medicine that all of us carry inside ourselves. All of us have medicine. Even the dumbest and the most annoying have medicine. And isn't it amazing that as the willingness and the ability to reflect back to us our greatest light. So, once again, that light, that vibrant spirit that moves us, we were born to actually be all that, to share it generously, and to not hide it from ourselves or from others. My healing journey, it turned out, was deeply colored and covered with shame. And shame is an emotion that keeps us hiding in a corner. Out of fear of judgment, which is just a projection of our own judgments. It is important for all of us, to come out of the many closets where we've been hiding. And to share our gifts, to share our wisdom, to share our hearts as often as possible. Because it's in this sharing, in this generosity of heart, that this human soup can become really the tasty soup that it was always meant to be. And that soup is not going to be the delicacy that it was always meant to be until all of us put our own unique flavor in it. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight, for coming out of hiding, for showing your face, for actually wanting to be with other like-minded people in a society that is increasingly fragmented. We know how important it is to be in community and how community strengthens us. And we can strengthen that community by showing up. By showing up and by speaking our truth and by walking our truth. And that's always easier said than done. But it's what we're called to do. And we do our best. We do our best, and that's enough. And that's good enough. So, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for listening. And if anybody has any question, I'll be happy to give my best shot at answering it.
What kind of questions?
I hate, God, it's piercing at me. I don't want to put a negative vibe on anything, but I have a feeling authorities is not really in my mind, concern, but I feel like there's a big, that sounds so tricky for me to say, I'm sorry. I feel like there's a bigger element trying to keep this awareness, enlightenment from happening. Do you have any, you know what, Charlie, I don't really even want you to respond to that. Please don't, because we don't
I'll be happy to.
It's just like,
I'll be happy to share my viewpoint.
Tell me, I don't know that.
I'll be happy to share.
Thank you.
Okay, so before I came down, I was reading some sermons by Master Eckhart. It is in our Judeo-Christian tradition, and most other spiritual traditions around the world have a similar feeling. The face of God is covered by veils. And if we were to look in the face of the divine, unprepared, we would die on the spot. It's important to remind ourselves that traditional spiritual traditions entail years and years of very humble preparation. To this day, if you want to learn to play the lute in China, you spend 10 years just cleaning the bathrooms. I see that the difficulty in accessing these medicines is a test of character. It's how bad do you want to wake up? And what are you willing to give? And what are you willing to give up? So, of course, there is a planetary situation where whatever powers are interested in keeping us in fear and keeping us small. That has always been so. It's no big news. It's also important to understand that every step forward is always brings a reaction. We experienced this in the 60s, a time of great consciousness expansion. And then before we knew it, very powerful conservative energies did their very best to sweep the rug from under us. So, once again, here is, for me, is a matter of responsibility, of personal responsibility. When we let go of this victimism, when we let go of this blaming somebody else, then we can take our lives into our own hands. In the end, the world, as far as I'm concerned, is simply a reaction, a reflection of who we are. In the end, these energies that we perceive as coming from outside ourselves that don't want us to wake up is only a reflection of our own of our own self-repression, of our own fear of freedom. When we stop pointing the finger, a beautiful thing happens. We can start looking at the world as a powerful reflection of our own inner world. Sometimes, because we're stubborn, we don't really want to open our eyes. We say we do, but there's a part of us that doesn't. That is perfectly okay being in oblivion, in amnesia, in slavery, in fear. But when we look at our world, we can see a reflection of our own inner world. And that can be very powerful. So, the fear that we see in the world, the agencies that deliberately create fear in this world, is just a reflection of what we do inside our heads, of our own repressive mechanisms and our own fascination with freaking ourselves out of thin air. You know, I was in Israel for the first time some years ago, and one day, in broad daylight, over the sky of the entire land of Israel, there was this, like a marquee, all across the sky that read, "We create all of our own suffering." Whoa. All of it. And I had, the concept was not new to me. But it was amazing because seeing it that big allowed that message to be driven a little deeper. So my invitation is to stop looking outside. To stop looking outside, wishing for external causes, something to blame, but to actually take responsibility for the world that we live in as the best possible world for us to learn the lessons we came here to learn. Many of the lessons are not pleasant. This world is not a perfect world, but I do believe that it is the perfect world for us to learn the things that we came here specifically to learn. So, as it is quoted on my website homepage, there's a quote by Carl Jung that says, "Your vision will become clear only when you look inside your heart. Those who look outside themselves dream, and those who look inside themselves awaken." And it's the temptation to look outside ourselves, to deflect responsibility, to blame, is strong. It's understandable. But the only way that I feel for us to truly wake up is by resisting the temptation to blame. Because in the end, that agency that is doing their best to help us stay small is still only another us. It's still part of who we are. It's not separate. There's a part in us in there, particularly if we react to it. If we react to that agency, it's because it's pushing a button inside ourselves. So the best way is to let go of the blaming and to see that there are our greatest teachers. Our greatest teachers are the most annoying ones. Face it. And as annoying as they are, when we finally learn what they are here to teach us, then we can just hold them in true compassion and in gratitude.
Thank you, Ben.
I have a question about ayahuasca. I've heard is the mother energy and San Pedro is the father energy. What is the real difference on your point of view of that?
Male, female, black and white are all just categories of the mind. And it's important, as far as I'm concerned, not to get too enamored with the labels we create. Now, ayahuasca and San Pedro, just like ourselves, are androgynes. They both carry a male and a female aspect. Ayahuasca has a strong female, we perceive it as feminine because it brings us back into our bodies, into the earth, into this very non-mental level of existence. For me, ayahuasca also has a very strong male energy. It is a very Shiva, destroyer of illusions, sharpness. San Pedro has indeed a very masculine energy, apart from its phallic appearances, and the fact that it's kissing the sky. However, for us Westerners, as a medicine, San Pedro has a very feminine energy in that it helps us connect with our emotions. It helps us feel. And this is a medicine that us as Westerners need desperately because we're so in our heads. So, a little bit of both.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just, oh, sorry.
You had a question?
Oh, we're running out of time.
Yes. So, a couple of questions, rapido.
Yeah.
You and you. Please.
Well, I was going to ask, well, do you take personal questions afterwards by chance?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I was just going to ask what the difference is because I haven't experienced San Pedro. What is the difference between that and
Okay.
ayahuasca experience?
Basically, the main difference, as far as I'm concerned, at its most powerful, ayahuasca helps us face and embrace our deepest fears. Not for nothing is called the vine of death. San Pedro is a heart opener. So it's about love. So they really work on two ends of the same spectrum. On one end we have fear, and on the other one we have love. That's in a nutshell. Yes?
So, I agree with you totally that integration is the most important part of any journey. And community support, ongoing support for that integration, which in my experience for ayahuasca can unwind for months and years after the journey, is essential. I am horrified by the aspect of ayahuasca tourism, where people who have no experience with plant medicine and are only interested because it's a hip thing to do, run off to places like Peru and to centers and do an ayahuasca journey just to say that they've been able to do it. My feeling is that essentially it's disrespectful to the plants. How do you handle that?
The people who are looking for another kick, or they're looking to raise their hip levels, are a minority. They are a minority. We need to take this at heart. The medicine is now, at the very beginning, in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, it was calling psychonauts. People were looking for another psychedelic experience. Now the medicine is calling people who need healing. And the curious are a minority. However, if the medicine does not teach them and put them in their place, we can also help them raise their awareness and maybe help them reflect a little deeper about their experience. Many people are called to this medicine, they don't even know why. And they're just following a hunch. And sometimes it feels like a very superficial hunch. No, it's oftentimes much deeper than that. And we can help these people connect with a deeper dimension of this experience so that they can value it for what it is.
So you've seen a shift over the years in terms of the people that show up.
Yeah. Those are a minority. I don't know about the States, but definitely in Peru, there are some of those, but they are a minority and no big deal.
There are endless opportunities for ayahuasca in the States. There are all kinds of self-anointed shaman all over the place.
Well, it's for us. It's for us to help raise awareness, and we can help raise that awareness by letting go of gossip, by letting go of easy lines such as, fools engaging with this medicine. Like, we're gonna drop all that. We're gonna drop all, polemics. And we're just gonna do our simple best in however small ways to just support this world so that we can keep benefiting from it. And yes, gossip and polemics, yeah, it's okay. We've done enough of that, right? Thank you. First of all, I wanted to announce that on Thursday, I'm going to be giving a talk at Kathmandu Boutique as part in Santa Monica on Lincoln Boulevard from like 6:30, something like that, about shamanic plant diets, hosted by the Psychedelic Integration Coach. Thank you. Thank you. And on Friday I'm going to be doing a book signing at Mystic Journeys bookstore in Venice. I have books available for sale at the door for $20 each, and I'll be happy to sign it. And right now I'm delighted to introduce you my friend Luz Maria Ampuero, who lives in Pisac, where I've been living for the last 11 years. She's a wonderful plant medicine person and a hoot to be with. And she's going to be performing with my dear friend John DeRosa. And so I welcome you both to
Well, we invite everyone to maybe, if you want, close your eyes and connect with yourself, with your breath.
Wow. Thank you three so much. What a just exquisite, the talk and the music was really lovely. So thank you. This is our life, guys. we're winning.